So Moondrop finally updated their Blessing 2 with the Moondrop Blessing 3. And let me tell you right now, they sound a lot like the Moondrop Alright, so Moondrop recently released their Moondrop Blessings 3, which is like their Blessing 2, only that the 3 sounds like the Moondrop variations. Let's talk about that. Alright, let's just kind of blaze through this. So here is the box. Here's our waifu. Let's open up the box and also appreciate that this box is designed to open up in a very nice way where it kind of stands up on its own when it's open. So I actually really do appreciate this packaging. It's pretty neat. But, you know, other than that, inside the box you have your typical contents, you know, the IMs, little carrying case which contains all the rest of accessories as well as an airplane adapter if anyone still uses these things. But, you know, if you need it, it's there. You, of course, get some non-essentials and one essential. Alright, now starting with the cable. It's a pretty nice cable, feeling pretty durable. It's got that twist braid, 3.5mm jack, a splitter, as well as a chin slider that, you know, after the splitter, you also get some pretty thick cables that end in ear hooks. And honestly, this cable looks very familiar because it looks a lot like the Moondrop Variation cables, which I have here. The only difference being the Moondrop Variations has a coppery cable and the Blessings 3 has a silvery cable. Also, the Blessings 3 gets a chin slider and the Variations for some reason don't. So that's an upgrade. And that makes me disappointed in the Variations cable a little bit. Anyway, moving on to the IM's design itself, it is definitely a little bit different from the Moondrop Blessings 2, with the faceplate being a polished metal with this angular teardrop design, and unfortunately this polished design will make it very susceptible to scratches. And this is a review unit, and unfortunately the last people who used it, or the last several people I guess, left a lot of scratches on it, which is kind of unfortunate, but I guess that does demonstrate that these are scratch magnets, so be very careful with them. And also, thanks last YouTuber or reviewer person who checked these out. Thanks a lot. Anyway, the faceplate aside, the rest of the IM is very much like the Blessings 2, being transparent, feels really solid with the plastic, and you can see the inside of the IM, of course, as I just basically mentioned. The design is essentially still got that transparent, nicely custom molded feel to it, despite being a, you know, pre-mold, designed to fit most people's ears, and this does look a little bit different than the Blessings 2 fit, and I might be right because when I did try them on, I did notice they felt a little bit different, but like different in a good way. So I feel like there were some adjustments made, or I'm just a little bit crazy, but I think these are just slightly more comfortable. I don't know. Maybe I'm nuts, but I like the feel of these guys because I do have the Variations, which essentially have the same shell design as the Blessings 2, and while these things are very comfortable, I think the Blessings 3 are more comfortable. I don't know if I'm crazy because they look very similar, but so far, comfort, I like it a lot. Also, these things aren't too big. They should fit most people's ears pretty well, unless your ears are really, really small, at least in like the little area here on the auricle. So, you know, there is that. But comfort, looks, all good. Alright, now regarding the sound of the Blessings 3, these things are definitely more Moondrop Variation than they are Moondrop Blessings 2. The idea of these guys, I think, was to take what people didn't like from the Blessings 2 and put it onto the Blessings 3, so kind of like a modded version of the Moondrop Blessings 2 Dusk is what some people are arguing, but I don't know, because I haven't used the Dusk. I've used the Blessings 2, and my main set is the Moondrop Variations, and the first thing I did notice when using the Blessings 3 was they sounded a lot like the Moondrop Variations. The only difference being that the Variations have more sub bass, so the lower bass, there's more of that. And the clarity and detailing you get from the Variations is better. Also, it does better in sound separation. That being said, what does that mean for the Blessings 3? What do those sound like? So the sound of the Blessings 3 is warm-ish, like the Variations, but still tries to be kind of neutral and balanced like the Blessings 2. Though it is still notable that there is added warmth to it at the low end. So at the bass, you're going to get a little bit more bass, more oomph in the low end, and it sounds really good. You get a little bit more punch, and that's also good, but not a whole lot, so these still aren't bass head IEMs. They are just slightly added warmth to give that more oomph, more body to the bass, and that is going to be very enjoyable to most people. The mids and the highs are also really good, being very nicely detailed. They got some good clarity to it, though they do feel a little bit recessed in like the mid-range, much like on the Variations. That being said, the highs, I think, go pretty down or high, but they don't go super high where it gets really sharp or sibilant, so that's great. So it's controlled as it goes really high up there. But I would not say that these are the brightest IEMs in the world. I would say that the tuning is somewhere around neutral balanced, if a little bit recessed when it comes to the treble and high range, essentially. Mids are also, you know, similar, but the mids are more noticeably a little bit more recessed, but not a whole lot. So, I mean, that could be just the added warmth from the bass, but, you know, mids and highs do feel relatively balanced, if a little bit more recessed than they were on the Blessings 2. So I do like that. So, because, like I said, it's essentially a variation with less sub bass, a little less detailing, and not as great sound separation. However, that does not mean that it has greatly affected the the soundstage, because a soundstage on the Blessings 3 is really big. I do like that, and now, mind you, it's big for an IM. So for an IM, it's got a spacious soundstage, it's fairly round, so you got some good width and depth, and there's also a fairly decent sense of height, which is going to be important in games that have verticality. Now, how it utilizes this stage is pretty good, so these are really accurate. The imaging is really good, sound separation is also pretty good, but not as good as on the variations. The variations have a noticeably better degree of sound separation, and that's just due to the way it presents sound, and there's a reason it costs more. There's more that went into the variations compared to Digital Blessings 2, but even then, in comparison, when you're playing games, these differences are not too noticeable unless you're really looking for it. So when it comes to performance in competitive shooters, the Blessings 3, despite being warmer than the Blessing 2, still did a really good job. The added warmth didn't really take away from like the mids and highs and your ability to track people's feet, and instead made the sound feel a little bit more full. Though I will say that the warmth doesn't make the mids and highs shine as much when you're trying to track those sounds, because some people like having more of those mids and highs to be able to hear those sounds early on, almost like a warning sign. But these guys, it's more relaxed. A little bit more natural, but that doesn't mean you can't listen for them, though you just have to put more effort into it versus letting the IEMs warn you that there are feet near you. But even then, they'll still ring out pretty clear. Now, with the way the sound is tuned and how the stage is set, I think it does a great job for tracking people. Had no problem looking for people from left, right, up, and down, so that is really good. That being said, are they the best for competitive shooters? No. I think the Blessings 2 still do a better job because of the way they present the mids and the highs, and that could be due to the fact that they aren't as warm. Because while the warmth is nice and gives a little bit more oomph, sometimes I think it does kind of take away from your ability to... I mean, it doesn't take away from your ability, but it gives you more to think about. It isn't uncommon for people to be using IEMs or headphones that are, that have a slightly boosted mid and high range just for them to purely win. Like a try-hard gamer that only wants to win will almost want an anemic level of bass for sheer focus on the mids and highs. So, with that in perspective, that these aren't the best for competitive shooters. But even then, if you play at a higher level, then I still think you would greatly benefit from using these guys. But like I said, I still think the Blessings 2 are more preferable if you're in that camp. Now, if you're planning on using these things for an overall experience, these are your end games, which these guys definitely can be, they do a great job in competitive shooters, and they do an amazing job in non-competitive, much like the Moondrop variations. If you're here to enjoy your time and immerse yourself in the gameplay open world stuff and really have the world just kind of suck you in, then these things will do a great job. And once again, this has a lot to do with the Blessings 3's added warmth from the 2s. You get more oomph in the sound, more body. It just feels more expansive when you're in the world and just exploring and whatnot. And you still get a lot of the clarity and details from the mids as well as the highs to fill in those gaps, and it just feels really, really good when you're playing these games. But once again, I still prefer the variations that I have, but with this in comparison, the variations is $200 more than the Blessings 3, which are only, $320, and the variations being $520. So that little difference won't matter to most people, I'd say. I think a lot of people would just pick up the Blessings 3, and these are your end game. But the moment you become a audiophile where the little things start to matter, then of course the variations will start to be very tempting to you, just for that extra bit of lower bass, if you like that, the extra bit of detail and that extra bit of sound separation. And those are things that I have noticed between these two. So it's almost like the Blessings 3 are less of a Blessings 3 and more like a Variations Junior or something like that. But yeah, for games, I'd say these things are overall very, very good. Does a great job for shooters, but a better job for non-competitive. So, that's basically it. If you're on a budget, but you like the variation sound, there you go. These things are going to be pretty good. Just mind you, it's still pretty expensive at $320, but that's usually a good range to be at if you're trying to get an endgame tier like IEM. Even the $200 range, you can find some endgame tier IEMs. But if you're broke, then of course you wouldn't be looking at this. But maybe one day you might think about picking it up and you'll never get another set of IEMs until you become an audiophile and suddenly you want to upgrade a little bit further. It really depends on taste because sound is very subjective. And also, when it comes to games, you should also keep that in mind. Whatever game you're playing, pick your IEMs carefully because some will sound better for certain games versus others, because if you're a competitive shooter and that's all you ever do, then these probably aren't the pick for you. And, I'm just kind of rambling at this point. So that being said, if this all sounds pretty good to you, I'll link a description if you want to buy it, and that's it. That's all I got today. So yeah, Moondrop Variations Junior, basically. So see you guys next time.